some people when they're pregnant, if it's planned and it's on purpose and they're financially stable, the whole world rallies around them and it's the most celebrated thing ever. Um, that was not my experience.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't change the need of that baby and the need of that mom to be believed in, to be supported, and to have, you know, overall well-being and
Mhm.
health.
Hi, guys. I'm your host, Megan Van Diepender, and this is the Empowerhood Podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. Motherhood is hard, and we are going to talk about all of the hard things that just are not talked about enough. So, buckle up and enjoy this episode. All right. Hi, Kyla.
Hi, Megan. How are
How are
you?
you?
I'm good.
I'm good too.
Excited to be here with you. Thank you for
I'm so
having me.
excited to have you. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's always fun to get to chat with you.
Yes, definitely. I love it. So, everyone listening in today, we have Kyla Schimdt here, and she is going to talk a little bit about unplanned pregnancy, her personal experience with this, and also the incredible business that she started to give parents the resources and support that they need if they are going through circumstances like this. So, Kyla, why don't you start off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you?
Sure. So my name is Kyla Schmidt. I'm the founder and executive director of Mom Starts Here. We're a nonprofit serving Albany, Schenectady, and Rensselaer counties in upstate New York. I'm a mom of three. I have an 11-year-old son, a 3.5-year-old daughter, and a almost 7-month-old son who is at work with us right now. So we get to hang out with him pretty often. He might make an appearance and make his presence known soon enough, but um, yeah, so I'm really passionate about making sure that parents have the support that they need. And fortunately, I'm able to walk out some of that passion through the organization that I work for, that, I had the fortune of being able to start and now the fortune of being able to continue to be a part of.
Yeah, definitely. So start from the beginning. How did you get to this business? Like, what is your journey?
Yeah, so it's interesting actually. Right before this meeting, I had a meeting with someone who was asking me some similar questions, and he sort of had helped me realize how easily I can sort of explain how we got here and how I'm working on, the language around where we're going, and how that ties into sort of some of my own personal pursuits and in the ways that Mom Starts Here has shaped my thinking and what I'm hoping to do in the world. So it's a funny kind of place to be right now to say like, oh yeah, I can do this part really easily. But the other part is the thing I'm working on. But so basically, the story is that at 19, I was in college and I ended up getting pregnant unexpectedly. And it was definitely a challenge to communicate that to the people in my life. Also, a challenge to navigate community resources and see what help was out there and engage with that help, and also deal with kind of all of the emotional and mental work that it takes to, um, you know, make that sort of transition, right? When a pregnancy is unplanned, it's a lot of mental work to be like, okay, so my life is forever changed. What are we doing now? um so really, in 2016, I had my son in 2012. In 2016, I founded Mom Starts Here to be a place that parents could go if they needed support. And that was really the internal support that they needed to kind of wrap their minds around this change, whether the pregnancy was unplanned or if they were, a young mom, or if they were a low income family that was just struggling, to really provide that support for the internal pieces, but then also the external needs that I experienced. Things like diapers and a car seat and a pack and play and clothing on an ongoing basis, and just having that like continual support, I think, was the main thing that was missing. For me, there was it's easy enough to find one-off support, but
Yeah.
your kids grow and you change and your circumstances change. And so that's what we really set out to do when we started Mom Starts Here, was to be a continuing support for those internal and external needs, and that's still what we're doing today.
That's amazing. I was going to ask you, so like when you were 19, what did you come across that was the hardest for you, during that time that you couldn't find those resources or support? Like, what did you base your business off of that was really hard for you?
Yeah, so I think like, the way that we tend to frame it is the internal and external. So speaking from, the internal needs that I had was really just like the community of people to provide encouragement, to really believe in me, and help me have like a healthy mental outlook on the journey I was about to embark on. And, I believed in myself, and I leaned very heavily on my faith. And I had, sort of the internal conviction that if this was happening, then it was something that I could handle, right? Like that I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't alone, that like God would see me through it. And he absolutely has, and more. Um, but the piece of, some people when they're pregnant, if it's planned and it's on purpose and they're financially stable, the whole world rallies around them and it's the most celebrated thing ever. Um, that was not my experience.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't change the need of that baby and the need of that mom to be believed in, to be supported, and to have, you know, overall well-being and
Mm-hmm.
health. And so much of that well-being and health is dependent on the parent's mental state. So it's kind of that external needs that they do impact your mental state, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to afford fill in the blank? So
Right.
that was definitely part of my experience. But honestly, like the deepest thing for me was those internal things. And I was really fortunate to have, some people that rallied around me. And so we're really
Yeah.
aiming to be those people that are in the
Yeah.
corner for parents that are really struggling. Because a lot of times they don't have that support. But
Yeah, you just
definitely,
gave me goosebumps because I feel like that's so hard, right? Like if that happens to you and you get pregnant, unexpectedly, the first things going through your head aren't like you're so excited about having a baby. It's like, how am I going to tell people? This is so stressful. It's like emotional turmoil instead of being like rejoicing for this gift, even if it's not expected or not. And I think there's not enough of that out there, for sure. So I think it's, huge what you're doing.
thank you. I think, we try and integrate more and more of that, right?
Mm.
The low hanging fruit, to put it that way, is sort of
Yeah.
the stuff. It's the diapers, it's the clothes, and
Yeah.
people can wrap their mind around that. Like babies use diapers, and some people can't afford them. Like easy,
Right.
quick narrative, no explanation needed, right? Um, the nuanced experiences of families in need, whether it be because it's an unplanned pregnancy, because they're
Mm.
young, because they're in an abusive relationship, because they're
Yeah.
getting evicted, because they just lost their job, because they're having health issues, because fill in the blank. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
stories that are really hard to tell, because they're not universally understood.
Right.
And there is a lot of nuance there.
Mm-hmm.
And just, so really what we're trying to do is be the community's safety net for all parents,
Yeah.
to make sure that they have whatever kind of support they need to really thrive in their parent-child relationship, with the ultimate goal being, better outcomes for that child and an
Mm-hmm.
intergenerational impact. That's our big picture
Right.
why.
That's like for
Um,
the long run, you're saying, like in
right,
the
because
future.
exactly, and anything short of that is temporary and it's a Band-Aid, and, like, it's cool to provide those
Exactly.
diapers, and, we can all feel good about that, but what's even cooler is having, a mom who feels supported and
Mm-hmm.
confident, and, like, they have the resources and the education and the support and the, community to
Mm-hmm.
be able to continue to show up well as a
Right.
mom every
Right.
single day. And
Yeah. Yeah,
that
and I think
impacts.
that I mean just that encouragement I'm sure is huge for the mom to be able to be a better parent, but also to encourage them that, they're capable to do, big things still. It's not like the end of the road for them, especially just hearing your story, Kyla. Like it's just the beginning, right? Like you become a mom and a lot of people think like it's like your life is
It's over.
over, right? But it's really just beginning, you get to be this example for this child, and lead them, to a really, really good life. And I think that encouragement just in itself to support them and know that they're not alone is huge for them to be able to, get a better job or really do something that they love. Even if it's just staying home with their child and loving them as much as they can, not having those stressors of
Hard
what do you say?
That's the hardest thing, just being home with your kids all day is nobody else,
Exactly. Right.
we all found that out during COVID. It's not
Oh,
easy, but
yeah.
to your point, Megan, just being able to support people, let them know that they're not alone, and
Mhm.
have real tangible ways that we do that in our programs through our parent life coaching, through
Mhm.
our peer support groups, our workshops, and the content that we create that's targeted at the real life circumstances that parents find themselves in, and
Right.
incorporating evidence-based information and walking with them on their pregnancy journey and the
Mhm.
postpartum journey. It's all of those things. And it's all those kind of soft, intangible, but it's making the intangible tangible is really what we're trying to do with
Right.
that kind of support.
Right. I mean, I find like even, pregnancy in itself, when it's planned, there's a lot of overwhelming things that go on through your mind, within that 9 to 10 months that you're pregnant. So, I mean, having it unexpected, I can only imagine the pressure, to be like, I need to be able to get all this stuff together for this baby and,
Right.
then be home with them and take maternity and like all this stuff. So I think it's amazing that you offer those like counseling sessions too, along with, the essentials. What do you think is like the biggest thing that you have to offer that's used the most? Would it be diapers, or I mean, what would it be through your business?
It's really hard to say. I think what's most desired are the diapers.
Mm.
Um, it's probably because we are the only local program that's providing a full monthly supply on a recurring basis. So everybody
Okay.
wants in on that.
Mm.
For good reason.
Right.
Diapers are super expensive.
Yeah.
The other ways that our communities address diaper insecurity tend to be through diaper banks or food pantries where you're getting, not an adequate supply, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not necessarily going to have your size in stock, and you can only go so often, and you have to, go there.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have, diaper closets that function very much in the same way. It's like an emergency kind of provision
Mm-hmm.
that'll get you through, 5 days or so. But we do have a monthly diaper program where um, families are given like a diaper benefit card similar to food stamps or WIC, where
Okay.
it's loaded with budget. They're able to buy their own diapers every month, and it's a full supply for every child in diapers in their household under the age of
Wow.
3. And so that's really meant to fully meet the need, alleviate the stress and the mental strain that families have from not knowing where the next box is going to come from.
Right.
Um, but that's super expensive, and so there's a limit to how many families we can serve in that program.
Right.
And that program's underfunded, which is something that we're constantly trying to raise awareness and money, so we can have more children in the program.
Yeah.
But that's probably the most, you know, desired program for folks to want to participate in.
Yeah.
But we do have, the material items are always really a need. There's so much
Mm-hmm.
material need out there. So
Yeah. I mean,
definitely.
kids are always growing, right? And pooping
Exactly.
and
Well, even
peeing and
look at car seats and pack
yeah.
and plays, while there are places in the community that you can get those things, you often, it's not a guarantee.
Right.
And you often have to participate in some kind of program in order to receive it, which is not doable for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, so that's, I think, a big gap that we're filling is just in the provision of those essential items. But, the long-term impact is really seen in some of the other forms of support that we provide.
Right. Well, yeah, I was going to say, like, psychologically, when someone goes through this, I mean, just like you did, what did it take for you to really feel, supported? What can you tell women out there that are going through this right now? Like, how can they find a support system where they live?
Oh gosh. I mean, it's a great question. I think that the things that I consider myself to be very blessed and privileged to have just the right kinds of resources within myself and within my family and within my
Mm-hmm.
community to come out the other side, relatively unscathed.
Right.
But that's not the case for everyone. That's not the case for a lot of women in unplanned pregnancies. I had, not a whole lot of barriers, right? I didn't have, um, you know, a partner or a, abusive relationship that was, keeping me in oppression. My son, my now 11-year-old son's father lived in another state, not that
Mhm.
there wasn't drama or, some sort of
Right.
hardship there. It wasn't my safety wasn't,
Mhm.
at stake, and I didn't
Right.
have, anybody in my face every day. Like, like the things that people have to deal with a lot of times in these
Right.
scenarios is really, really hard. Um, and I think that the things that got me through were something you touched on earlier was like still having a dream, still
Mhm.
believing that the things that you want for your life are possible.
Mhm.
What's really hard, I think, is a lot of folks that come into these scenarios already are having a hard time having dreams, having, visions for their lives
Mhm.
that go beyond, getting through to the next
Mhm.
day. And so that's something that we've always really tried to do is help people have visions for their lives, set goals for
Mhm.
themselves. But any mom that's kind of finding themselves in this position, I would say hold on to a dream because it's the best thing you could do for your child is to, you know, really have that kind of
Mhm.
dream in your heart that you're pursuing. That's one
Mhm.
of the best things you could teach them how to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's huge too. Um, Now, I mean, unplanned pregnancies, I mean, I was doing some research on it. I mean, it's really common in the US, like the statistics are really high. Um, why do you think that is? Like, how are we not supporting, younger women, or like, how can we support women more, I guess, through this?
Yeah, I think, part of it always has to come down to education, and what people do and don't understand about birth control, about their own bodies, about sex. Like there's just, a lot of, I think, misconceptions, and lack of truth, around that. But even further back than that, I think, um, especially in this age of, TikTok and social media and
Yeah.
all these kind of
Yeah.
messages that young girls are receiving about their worth and their value, what makes a woman valuable, and all of these things. It lends itself to finding purpose in external things and in relationships and in being attractive or having a boyfriend, and then that can very easily lead itself to being in a compromised position where you make decisions that you might not make otherwise. So I
Yeah.
think, all of it kind of goes back to internal worth and internal kind of
Mhm.
stability and the ability to be, self-aware and regulate yourself and your emotions and have, you know, a good positive view of yourself for the right reasons. I think all of those things are really important, which in my book always comes down to parenting, right? Like
Right.
what was poured into you, right?
Right.
What kind of resources did your parents have to give you that kind of
Mhm.
stable place to approach the world from where you don't feel like you need to, you know,
Yeah.
sleep with someone to be worth something. And that wasn't my experience. I think I did have that, which I think was part of why I was able to kind of come out the other side and be
Right.
like, I'm still worth something. I'm still going to do something great with my life.
Yeah.
Um, but I think for some people that can be the thing that really just creates this downhill trajectory is already feeling insecure and not worth it. Um, and then having that message spewed again, now when you have this
Yeah.
unplanned pregnancy and then it
Yeah.
just perpetuating. But
Yeah,
I
no,
think
I think I mean, you're right on education, and just knowledge of that, especially in the world that we're living today. I mean, I remember being a teenager, and it was really hard, to find that self-worth, especially with all the things that surround us in our society and whatnot. And I think you're right. I mean, like you said, you're trying to get to the root cause, not the band-aid, right? And I think the root is really like how we're raising our children, right? With anything, but especially with like confidence, self-worth, self-love, all of that stuff. We need to be that example, and you being able to offer that to women, that might not have that, right now, and to bring that to them along with the essentials like diapers and all that. I think, you're doing something bigger than you ever thought, right? I mean, you're getting down to.
yeah, for sure. I think, it's always, our program director Paige and I were literally constantly talking about how we can help people beyond just the temporary
Mhm.
material things and deepen our impact in ways that are lasting and meaningful. But you have to meet someone where they are. And
Right.
not everyone is in a place where they're looking to grow and they're,
Hmm.
open to those kinds of things. And so it's about just creating that space and being
Hmm.
a voice of positivity and not, in a way that's untrue, but just
Hmm.
really telling people what you see in them, telling them the good you see, encouraging them when they're doing great, and
Right.
validating their feelings. And some of that goes into like the life coaching piece, but
Hmm.
um just really helping people see the good that they're doing and not, encouraging anxious, depressive, self-deprecating voices that they already have a lot of times going on.
Right. Right. And I know you do throw most of your clients like a baby shower, right? And I feel like
Yeah,
even just that, just being like, you're special. This is special.
exactly.
This baby is special. That's just like huge just in itself. Especially if
Yeah.
they don't have a support system at home, just to be able to have that and, feel really
Love the
welcome.
showers. They're so much fun,
Yeah. I love
to
that
go
too.
have snacks, and I
Yeah.
always try and get, like, a group baby bump shot. It's,
Right.
like, my favorite thing. I'm like, "Oh, look at this month's girls. I love it."
Yeah. Well, and I
Um,
also love that you have other women come into that are expecting as well. So you're creating this little mama community, for these women, and they don't know each other, right? This is like the first time
yeah.
they're kind of meeting each other. Because I think obviously while you're pregnant, it's really challenging, but like afterwards, postpartum, when you have the baby, you're really alone. It's very isolating. And just to have these other moms that are kind of going through the same thing that they might not have known beforehand, and having you to talk to as well. But that's huge. A lot of women
Yeah,
don't do that, and they won't reach out to find other postpartum women. So I think that's
we're
really
we're
really
trying
important.
to yeah, we're trying to have, the, monthly baby showers that we do, and the moms that are pregnant together, we're trying to turn those into peer groups and
Mhm.
postpartum, support groups that, like you said, really build on that momentum of having community and being understood by others in that situation.
Great. So, Kyla, what advice can you give to people out there right now? Like, what would be the first thing you would tell moms out there, that aren't in the New York area, or what should they do to get the support that they need?
Yeah, so we do have a mobile app. And while the material item support is limited to the 3 counties that we serve in upstate New York, we do provide coaching and other services and support um, for the internal needs of parents through our mobile app. So you can definitely get in touch that way. I think if I had one message, right, to give to any parent, it would be nobody is born with the knowledge and skills to be a perfect parent. There are no perfect parents, but
Mhm.
it's a learning experience for every single one of us.
Mhm.
And I think that there's sometimes a misconception that you should just know how to do it. That, oh, I should be able to do this. It's my kid. I should know what they need. I should know, how to show up for them. Um, but you'd have to be an expert on humanity in order to really have that be true. And
Right.
we're not. Most of us are not, experts
No. Oh
on
my
humans,
God, no.
you
God,
know,
I'm 7 years in, you're 11 years in, and I'm still learning every day. So,
every day. And
yeah.
it's like, just having an openness and a humble approach to parenting, a vulnerability where, we change the narrative from you know what's best all the time for your child. Like, no, you don't. Like, your child best, but you don't
Mhm.
necessarily know what's best. Like,
Mhm.
how could that be true? Right. And so, like,
Yeah.
we have this very, like, you know, a lot of times we'll have walls to learning and growing in our
Mhm.
parenting, letting other people in, like, and just doing this together. It really does take a village, and
Yeah.
just having more openness, I think, to learning and growing. And also having a level of discernment about what's right for you, what's right for your kid. That doesn't mean like just take everything that anyone says. This isn't about
Mhm.
an advice giving thing. It's more about an attitude of growth and learning,
Yeah.
and being open to that, I think is my message to all parents,
Absolutely. I mean,
including
that's
myself.
a great message. Amen. Yeah, I've learned more in the past 7 years than I've learned, I feel like, in my whole entire lifetime.
Yeah.
And it is truly like you have to be open to it, because I think a lot of times, you put out there like parents are supposed to know what they're doing, right? And like what's best for your child. And like, yeah, we're parents, right? We're supposed to guide them, but doesn't mean we're not going to make mistakes, and we can
Right,
still
right.
admit to those mistakes.
Own
And
own your gut instinct, own the fact that you
Mhm.
know your child better than anyone else. That is 1000% true. And you're gonna know
Absolutely.
when advice or somebody's theory or method of parenting isn't a good fit for you and it isn't a good
Mhm.
fit for your child. 100%.
Mhm.
However, the other side of that is research-based pieces around like what children need and what
Mhm.
is developmentally appropriate and what is required of a parent to really support their child
Mhm.
in lasting ways. We do have that, like that, those are facts, right? And so
Mhm.
I think just
Yes.
being open to learning and growing in those ways, the nitty-gritty of how you choose to do X, Y, and Z
Mhm.
is not really the main point, but the main point of just being open to growth, I think, is really, really huge and something that we can all take some steps in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like nowadays there's like endless resources online or books and stuff that you can find your own, kind of parenting niche, what
Right.
feels right to you and your values and whatnot. And yeah,
Exactly.
that's huge. So where do you see your business, 5 to 10 years from now? What do you want to do?
Yeah, I really would just hope that we have a larger footprint and a increased capacity to be a part of the village for more and more parents.
Mm,
Definitely moving the needle forward for low income parents, particularly because I know that they have the most barriers. That's really the heart of Mom Starts Here, is to support all parents, but particularly those that have, increased need, but just to change the culture around parenting a little bit so that we're all realizing that the things that we have inside of us really matter in the way that we show up with our kids, but also the support we have outside of us in terms of just having those basic needs met. They're really vital. And so I have a vision for an organization that really can grow to do that for more and more communities. I mean, the timing is in God's hands. I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what that looks like, but
right.
I think that the sky's the limit because I think it's the great universalizer, right? It's just
Yeah.
the fun of raising other humans. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll be growing for sure.
Oh my God. I feel like you are just like as we speak. I feel like you've already helped so many families. And it's just gonna, like you said, sky's the limit for sure.
Mhm.
And I just think like it's really inspiring. And I hope more people like listen to this and hear more about it and start more groups like this because I think it is such a huge need. And I was listening to a podcast the other day and this girl, she got pregnant in college as well. And she was a collegiate athlete. And
Mm.
they told her to quit. And basically were like, you probably aren't going to finish college. And there was just no support. And she was like,
Yeah.
nope, I'm not going to do that. And she got a job and like ended up finishing college and ended up becoming like an elite athlete. And, now she's like 4 kids later, like you, she was like, I'm not going to have it. And so she ended up
Yeah.
starting, a nonprofit for girls that get pregnant in college that are athletes.
I
Just to
love
be able
that.
to support them so they can continue to, be an athlete because it's obviously time
Yeah.
consuming and whatnot and be a mom. And yeah, like I said, I feel like just like spreading the word and just being like, this is not the end, right? Like
Right. Well,
you
and to
have
your
the
point, it makes me
support.
think, yeah, it makes me think, I'm such a believer in the power of speaking life into people.
Hmm.
And I'm not really sure exactly why our society has such an aversion. It's like if someone is bound to fail, then they're bound to fail. Like, let's just pretend that that's true. Okay, you ruin your life, everything's, over. What's the harm in telling them that it's not? Like, why
Right.
do we feel like we need to like double down? Like,
Right.
and even as parents, I think that's probably where it comes from, right? This
Mhm.
culture of parenting where we feel like in order for someone to learn a lesson, we have to condemn them. They have to feel the shame,
Yeah.
or they're not going to learn. But shame actually doesn't teach us anything.
Right.
um, it's a huge barrier to growth.
Hmm.
It's a distraction. It gets in the way. But to your point, if you tell that college athlete, like, hey, you know what, you're pregnant, but I believe in you and I see great things in
Hmm.
you and you're so talented. And this baby is so fortunate to have a mom that's so gifted and is going to persevere, and you keep going. And let's say that she's doomed regardless of what you say. What's
Hmm.
the harm in telling her she can do it?
Right.
And we need to be doing that. Parents, when your child comes home with something, like you tell them that
Hmm.
they can do it. When your sister, your whoever,
Hmm.
finds themselves in an unplanned pregnancy, the worst case scenario is, it is all over and they've ruined their lives, but it's really unlikely. Like it's unlikely, and you're
Right.
just making it that much more likely that they're successful
Hmm.
and that they thrive and that their child is better off for it when you speak life into them. So,
Yeah.
and we need to be doing that for our children too. When they make
Yeah.
mistakes, tell them what you see in them and you tell them, who you believe them to be, and you don't let the mistakes define them because then they
Yeah.
grow up people that then say those kinds of things to other people.
Exactly. I mean, I'm a firm believer in like finding solutions, right? So even if it is a tough situation, like we can find a solution to this. We can, find a positive in it and we can get through it. And I think we've talked about this before. Like, I mean, it makes you stronger, right? It's like it could be like a huge mountain or like a huge setback, but there's always another side. There's always another side to get over to it. And I think there's always solutions. Like, I mean, I think my daughter gets sick of hearing me say it. The other day I asked her I had just run a marathon, so I wasn't bending
Oh my
over very well. So I was like, great,
God.
can you pick this up off the floor for me? And she's like, Mom, you are fully capable of this. That's what she said. She's 7. And I was like, all right, well, at least I'm glad like some of these like inspiring words are like resonating in her little head. And
Isn't it great when they get old enough to like repeat you back to you?
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh,
So I'm like, she does listen to me sometimes,
right."
So, big moment over there. But yeah, I think there's always solutions. And yeah, like hearing encouragement because, I mean, this is why I started this podcast, right? Because shame, especially as a mom, is just so huge. And it's so
Mom guilt.
isolating. Yes.
Mm.
It keeps you so isolated in your burden, and it's just, if we talk about these things and put them out there and know that you're not alone and like there are people like you that are like providing these resources and support, and then there's other companies out there that can also provide support, I hope it will get rid of it, or at least help get rid of it.
Yeah. It'll change the narrative, and
Yeah.
I think what you're doing is beautiful because you're creating space for people to grow in, which I think is what we all need, are more safe places to sort of have that introspective moment,
Mhm.
admit where we've fallen short and grow,
Mhm.
because shame just makes people want to hide. It creates cover,
Exactly.
you want to cover yourself from the vulnerability of criticism. Um and that's not a safe place to grow in, so
Right.
thank you for
Yeah, you
doing this.
can't. You're kind of just staying still, right? And like
Right,
thinking
you're
you're the
hiding.
only one in this situation. And yeah, once you speak it, like I say to all my moms that I interview, I'm like, as soon as you put it out there, it's like you release it, right? Like you're
Mhm.
talking about something that was really hard, that you must have felt really alone in, and now you're talking about it and helping someone just by speaking it, out loud. So
For
it's
sure.
it's really
The
powerful.
most crippling thing is for us to all believe that we're alone in our struggles, and to think
Hmm.
that, something was intrinsically wrong with us
Right.
that got us into a difficult spot.
Yeah.
But when we kind of zoom out a little bit and have a more holistic view of how we're all equipped or not with
Hmm.
certain things, right?
Yeah.
And then we're equipping or not our children with things that will then, set them up for how they handle things, and the best thing
Right.
we can do is be gentle and have grace for our own selves,
Hmm.
and empathy for ourselves, and also extend that to our children and teach them how to do the same. I think it creates an atmosphere that is, conducive for growth and not shame and hiding and being stuck.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. All right, Kyla. So where can we find you? Where can we find Mom Starts Here?
Yeah, definitely download our app, follow along with us. We are going to be posting more and more content on there and sharing more opportunities to engage virtually and in person if you're local. But follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and we have a Twitter. We don't post anything. We don't tweet. But we
I
have,
don't
you're into it.
tweet. I don't
Go
know how
ahead
to
and
tweet.
follow us on Twitter. But, not going to see very many tweets from us, but Instagram, YouTube, and definitely the mobile app.
Sounds great. All right, so I'm going to link all of that below, and you can find Kyla there. Thank you so much. This is so much incredible knowledge, and I know people will reach out and get even more resources from you personally. So thank you
For
so much for
sure.
sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye,
Have a great
Megan.
day.
You too.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Empowerhood is brought to you by Flourish Everyday Coaching. Check them out in the link below. And again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. If you could take 60 seconds of your time and leave us an Apple review, this helps share the news about this podcast and help women all over the world. If you want to see the video version of this podcast, you can go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next episode.